Folks, welcome to Metal Wani and Metal Nation Radio. With us today, we have the majestic drummer Gavin Harrison. How are you doing, sir?
Very good. Nice to be called majestic.
Fantastic. Now that your highly anticipated album, Cheating the Polygraph, is already out, you've heard the fans' response to all the tracks which have been on this album. So, what have been some of the best ones you have received so far?
Well, I think what's been interesting is that some people have said, I really didn't think I would like this record because I don't like jazz, I don't like big band, I'm not even a Porcupine Tree fan.
Right.
And yet they turned out that they listened to it and really liked it, which is great. That means people, are approaching the record with an open mind.
True.
And are willing to give it a chance. The problem with a genre is that a genre is a great excuse for somebody to completely ignore your whole life's work.
Right.
They think you are in a certain bracket or the music is in a certain bracket, and they have already pre-decided that they don't like that bracket.
True. Absolutely.
And therefore wouldn't go near it.
That's right. That's right. Now you have reimagined 8 songs from the acclaimed Porcupine Tree discography. Now you have done it in a set of, let's say, vibrant new arrangements, and that you've given them full free rein to your inquiring musical mind. What made you choose these 8 songs specifically?
These 8 songs specifically, well, the first 2 that I chose, the first one was Futile, and that's really where the whole project started. And Futile was a song that I wrote with Steve Wilson back in about 2002.
Right.
When he introduced me to the music of Meshuggah, death metal band who are absolutely brilliant.
Right.
And it's a good point that it wasn't a genre of music that I spent much time listening to, and Steve presented me with that music, and I absolutely loved it. I could see the beauty in the design, the musical ideas. So Futile was inspired by Meshuggah.
Awesome.
And it was also the first song that, when I was asked to perform at a special event with a big band, somebody said to me, would you consider doing a Porcupine Tree song?
Right.
And I thought, well, there aren't any Porcupine Tree songs that would be suitable for big band. And so I thought, okay, well, how about the most unlikely song possible, which at that time was Futile, because it was the most math metal heavy song Porcupine Tree had ever played at that point.
Right.
So it seemed like a good fun way to start. The second song that I chose was Cheating the Polygraph. And, together with my arranger, Lawrence Coffell, we completely took it in a different direction to Futile.
Right.
And that was the point where I thought, okay, well, then now we have these 2 songs. I wonder if it's even possible to make a whole album of Porcupine Tree songs, because we already have these 2, and I like the idea of a cohesive theme for a record. So I chose the songs on the record because, I had a good feeling about some of the songs that they would work in a different format. There's plenty of songs that I tried to make work and then I abandoned because I realized they just weren't suitable, or myself and Lawrence couldn't find a good solution to do it in an interesting way. So these 8 really were the best, in my opinion, the best songs that were the most suitable and had the right amount of, rhythmic design in them that could be interesting from my point of view. But, I really didn't make the album for Porcupine Tree fans.
Right.
To please them or annoy them. I really made the album for myself
True.
which is how you should make every album.
Absolutely.
You should make the album exactly the way you want it, not the way a record company wants it or the way you think the fans want it.
Mm-hmm.
Because believe me, you're never going to please all the fans.
Absolutely.
Whatever you do, you can't please all the fans. So the only person you can guarantee on pleasing is yourself.
True.
And so really I made the record for myself.
That's awesome because, you could have done it note by note and let's say rehashing the same old Porcupine Tree songs. And, but when I listened to the album, it kind of made me feel that, it actually made me forget the original track. And, and at the same time, you also made sure that you kept the best parts of the original tunes intact and they're both identifiable, yet you've maintained that re-envision of those tracks.
Yeah, that's the balance you need to strike. You need to find balance in everything.
Mm-hmm.
In the way you play the drums, in the way you lead your life. You do too much of something in one direction and it's no good. You go to the other direction, it's no good. You need to find the right balance for you, for your music, for your personality.
Right.
And there was no point to make covers. There was no point to make note-for-note covers.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't see any point or interest in that.
Right.
So I wanted to really reimagine the songs. And, there's going to be people who hear this album who don't know Porcupine Tree.
Right.
And that's fine. You don't need to know these songs. But it isn't just about the novelty of, wow, look what he's done for this song. I can't believe it. Okay, maybe if you get a thrill out of that if you're a Porcupine Tree fan and you know the originals.
Mm-hmm.
But I wanted this album to be accessible to people who don't know Porcupine Tree, don't know any of the songs.
Right.
And to be honest, most of the musicians who played on this record, they don't know Porcupine Tree. They didn't even know these songs.
That's awesome. That's really cool because, when I listen, keeping the original tune in mind, even if you didn't know the original tune, a fan can still enjoy it as a modern composition that's, let's say, would work with this kind of instrumentation. You have Nigel, the gifted saxophonist, taking care of majority of the sax, amazing lines, and of course Lawrence as well on bass. So it kind of reminded me of those early Frank Zappa production, that kind of big, environmental, rich, layered, the textured, atmosphere on this album.
Yeah, I think, Frank Zappa's a good case. He didn't stick to one genre, did he?
True.
Some of these albums are doo-wop, some of them are orchestral, and some stuff's funky. He really didn't take note of the caught or assigned a genre.
Right.
If anything, Frank Zappa became a genre.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? If people say, oh, this is really Frank Zappa-esque, he really made his own mark in music. There's a few musicians, I think of Jeff Beck like that. I think of Jeff Beck as just a genre as his own. Jeff Beck is kind of like, I don't think of him like other guitarists. I think of him as just, he is Jeff Beck.
Right.
It's his personality. He's played lots of different styles across his albums going right back, even to the late 60s.
True.
And I think you need to transcend the parameters and the limitations of any genre.
Right.
You just need to forget genres and think, this is just music.
Yeah, you need to cross boundaries.
Well, and I think we did with this record.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't trying to make a big band record. I just happened to use a lot of big band instrumentation.
Right.
Plus, some sounds which are outside of big band, like the orchestral percussion, like the marimba, like the euphonium, and the bass clarinets and the tenor horns. Mm-hmm. The tubacs, lots of sounds that you wouldn't hear in a normal big band setup.
True, absolutely. Now, when I talk about your drums, it's virtuosic, and you don't club the listener over the head with the flurries of fills. So it's got that balance. And then when I think about the number of drummers which we have in the heavy metal universe right now, I'm damn sure that if any modern drummer who's well versed in the progressive rock is worthy of picking up the sticks alongside legends like King Crimson, it's gotta be you. So, how does it feel like being part of a legendary band like King Crimson?
Well, it's great. I don't think in those terms, you know. I don't sit on stage thinking, wow, this is a legendary band. For me, it's just a band. I'm a member of a band. And in any band I've been in, I take my role very seriously.
Right.
And just try to play the music the best way I can.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, with this record, it's not, I don't think of this record as a drummer's record. You know, I'm not playing big solos and big show-off things all the way through the record. I just want to place the drums inside the arrangement, because the arrangements really are the beauty of this record.
True.
Excuse me.
That's really cool.
There's the thing, you know, it's the ideas, the musical ideas, which interest me the most. Not if somebody plays really fast on the drums. That only impresses beginners and non-drummers. When you see someone play fast on the drums, it makes, you know, the man in the street think you're a genius.
True.
But actually, amongst musicians, you know, it's just a circus trick, really. Playing fast.
Right.
Playing fast is something you can easily acquire. Playing musical and having great ideas isn't something you can just pick up in, you know, a few days or a few years of just practicing on a practice pad to get up your speed. Having good musical identity and a personality and a way that you can express yourself clearly inside, you know, authentically inside a given format takes years and years. And that's what impresses me when I hear musicians that I like. You know, when I hear Jeff Beck, as we were just talking about him, I don't hear his licks, his speed. I hear him. I hear his personality. When I hear Tony Williams play the drums, I'm not interested in Tony Williams' technique or his signature licks. I can just hear him.
Right.
It's like he's talking to me.
Absolutely.
I just feel Tony Williams. I'm not interested in his sound or his technique. I'm hearing him, and it really transcends all the technical stuff.
True. Absolutely true. You know, Gavin, I mean, you've been part of Porcupine Tree as well. I mean, why do you think people connect to Porcupine Tree's music? Why do you think, you know, people have related their life to your music? And everybody loves Porcupine Tree. Everybody connects their real life incidents, and they kind of take those as sort of an inspiration from these tracks. What's that beauty in that? I know you got to explain me.
Well, it's not true to say everyone loves Porcupine Tree. We certainly had our critics, but you know, that sort of fades away over time.
Right.
With every album we brought out, we had lots and lots and lots of people writing on the internet how much they hated it and how much they despised the way we had moved from this album to this album. So it's not true that everyone liked it. Why people identified with it, I don't know. I think the music had an element in it which was greater than the sum of the parts.
Right.
And it had a sort of cinematic element to it, in that when you listen to the music, images came to your mind. And I've always really liked that.
Right.
I'd like to just feel the music, and images come to my mind when I listen to it. That's kind of what the artwork is saying on the cover of Shooting the Polygraph. I'm sitting there with a band of light around my eyes. And really it means, you know, don't use your eyes. Just listen to music. Don't get distracted. Don't sit there playing around on, you know, put an album on and then go on Twitter and then go on Facebook and then look at the internet. Because you've turned the music into background music. You're not really giving it 100% of your attention when you're using your eyes to do something else.
Absolutely.
So it was kind of a statement with the artwork that I would be kind of blindfolded by light, because it's really about listening and feeling music and letting the music create images in your mind. And maybe that's what people liked about Porcupine Tree, and maybe that's what people like about this new record, Cheating the Polygraph.
That's awesome, because in a lot of ways, this album feels like a film score to me.
Right. Well, I like that kind of feeling that you start to get images, whatever those images are to you. It doesn't matter if people get different images.
True.
And really, when I look back on the music that I've loved the most in my life, it reminds me of a time in my life.
Mm-hmm.
I knew what I was doing when I was listening to Stevie Wonder's Hotter Than July album, or Phil Collins' Face Value or something. I remember that year of my life and what I was doing. And when I hear those records again, it brings back those memories and some of the feelings I was having in that period. And I think music is such a precious, valuable commodity. I don't like the way it's become sometimes kind of fast food, junk, throwaway. And it's been devalued, really. A lot of it devalued by the way it can be shared and passed around.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I totally agree with you. Now, Gavin, this is $1 million question, and I'm sure all your fans have been waiting for an answer, and I've been waiting for this answer from quite a while. That what's the status of Porcupine Tree? I mean, are you guys ever going to reunite and work on a new album?
Well, I'll tell you if you're going to pay me the $1 million.
No, that was a killer one.
Well, all I can say is that we haven't split up, and we will be back. But there is no plan right at this moment to do that. We've all gone off in different directions, and, Steve's doing his solo stuff, and I'm playing in King Crimson, and Richard and Colin are doing lots of stuff.
Right.
And I think if and when we do get back together, it will be a much better record because of the experiences that we've had in the time that we have not been together.
Absolutely.
The worst thing we could have done, I feel, is straight at the end of the Incident tour to go in the studio the next day would have been a disaster to me, because we were burnt out, I felt, from very long amount of touring.
Now, the creative juices coming out of your mind, and even Stevens and Richards, were they reduced because of the touring?
No, the problem is when you're on touring, it's not very creative.
True.
Because you're just going through the same cycle every day. It's like Groundhog Day. You do the same day every day. You get up and you sound check and you play the show and you get back on the bus and you travel to another town and you get up and you go in the venue and you sound check and so on and so forth. It's not very creative being on tour, and that's what it frustrates me on tour, because I can't practice the drums.
Right.
I'm away from my studio. And I'm sure it's the same for the other guys. If you're a creative person, you're put in a position of just performing, which isn't you're not creating anything new, really.
Right.
You can try to improvise a little bit during the show. You can try to change a few subtle, minor things as you go along, if you have any solos or with drum fills, but it's not a very creative environment being on tour, and that's what I don't like about it. At home, I have a studio at home. I have my drums set up. I've got my piano. I've got the bass. I've got the guitar. I've got the whole studio here. So if I'm feeling creative, I'm sitting in the right place.
Right. True.
But not on a bus. Not on a bus going from sort of Tallahassee to Seattle.
Yeah.
That is not the creative environment, because you're kind of trapped.
True.
Being on tour is like being on Big Brother, trapped in a submarine. It's a very weird world. And I think all of us, you know, when we got to the end of the incident tour, were really looking forward to getting back to normal life, getting back to our families, and, you know, having a break mentally from that. And I think having, you know, some good time in between projects is always a good idea.
Absolutely right. That's really great to hear, Gavin. Now, I don't know what memories you have of playing in India for the first time in 2010 when your fans were in the front rows, you know, and humming those epic tunes. Do you have any such memories?
Yeah, I remember the gig in Bombay, right?
Right.
I remember the gig, yeah. It was amazing. It was crazy, it was chaotic, and it was incredible. I mean, I've never seen so many people jammed into one place. It was fantastic. It was, you know, obviously a very foreign experience to us.
True.
It was our first time in India, and we had a great time. It was absolutely fascinating. Many of the places that we play, we've already been to many times.
Right.
And this was our first time in India, and yeah, we loved it. It was just like being in a different world. It was fantastic.
That's awesome, Gavin. Now, before I conclude the interview, how about you define cheating the polygraph in your own style in just one sentence?
How do I define it?
Yes.
Well, it's the last 5 years of my life. It's my bucket list record. It's something I've been wanting to do since I was 8 years old. And so, you know, if nobody bought this record, I would still be happy because it's something I always wanted to do, and I just wanted to make a record like this to leave my mark on the earth.
Fantastic. Wow. Now that was really intense. Thank you very much, Gavin. Always an honor having a chat with you, and I don't know when, you know, we get to meet you here in India, so I'm just going to wait.
Yes, I hope to be back.